Greetings, Internet! Welcome to episode number 201. That's right, 201. I missed 200. Sorry, my bad.
And 199 and 198.
Of the Comic Watcher Show. I'm Matt, and this is Chad, my far more capable than I am co-pilot. Chad, how the hell have you been?
Hanging in there.
All right. Well, we are starting the new year off right. We are starting off with a bang. We have an industry legend with us tonight. You may have heard of him. His name is Mr. Mike Grell. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hi, guys. Great to be here.
We are very excited. We've also got his partner in business crime and comics lore, Mr. Jeff Messer. Jeff,
hey,
how are
everybody.
you?
That's great, man. It's always great. It's always great to hang out with Chad and with Mike, and it's great to hang out with you now, Matt.
Well, thank you kindly. I do appreciate it. I don't know if I'd ever call myself the life of the party, but for at least 1 hour a week, I try to be interesting. So,
Give you 1 hour. That's all it takes.
1 hour. It's if you ever read that Tom Pyre Hour Man series, it's the Hour of Power. So, but we are here with Mr. Grell to discuss his latest Kickstarter, and it is a whopper of an art book. 50 years of art by Mike Grell. Mike, why don't you tell us about this bad boy?
I blame it all on Jeff.
Okay, Jeff, I'm sorry.
Jeff had run a Kickstarter campaign for Bohampton and got some really great response for it. And a few weeks ago, he came to me and said, you've got a whole body of work stretching out there 50 years. If we put out the word, I bet we can get people to send stuff in. Holy cow. I never expected to see some of these pieces ever again. A lot of them I have completely forgotten. We've had contributions from backers who have commissions dating back 30 and 40 years.
Wow.
Original art pieces, very rare pieces that wound up in somebody's hands, somebody's collection, something that I probably didn't see any value in at the time. And they were kind enough to send in high resolution scans of all this stuff. So you're getting a unique look at 50 years of development. I always said that I don't draw the same way I did last year or the year before that or 10 years ago or 20 years ago, because as an artist, I believe that if you stop growing, you stop evolving, you stagnate. And if you stagnate, you die. I mean, that's all there is to it. There was an artist who shall remain nameless, although I'm so tempted, about 40 years ago, they put out a book about his art, and he had a short introduction where he wrote the stupidest statement I ever heard by an artist. He said, "Art no longer holds any mystery for me because I have mastered every aspect of it." Like, really? Okay. And what did you do? Yeah. And what did you do for encore, Mr. Da Vinci? So the book itself is going to be 200 pages, right, Jeff?
Yeah, that's what we're shooting for 200 pages, but and that seemed like a reasonable number when we started talking about it. But I got to tell you that the fans, as soon as we solicited fans to share their collections, their private collections with us, as Mike said, 40 years worth of artwork has suddenly started being uploaded into a Google Drive folder, and we could easily see a volume 2 out of this. There's so much art, everything from original.
That's 50 years, by the way.
5 0. Yeah. And so there's so much original art. Some people who own original pages of things dating back 50 years almost. And Mike has done commissions of recreations of some of his classic covers, fully painted recreations of
Really?
Warlord covers and things like that, which we're putting in the book because they're gorgeous, and it's like it's a then and now sort of thing, or a then and whenever Mike was commissioned to do this. It's overwhelming. The fan response has been just overwhelming. Everybody popping up saying anything that I've got, here they'll email me or they'll send me a private message and go, look at this, look at this, look at this. And I'm like, good, let me create a folder for you and go drop it in the Google box. And it's overwhelming in a good way to see this much love from this many people to try and create a basically a fan made art book, coffee table style art book that that works great for comic fans, but also works great for the hoity-toities who have the I'm trying to think, it'll go right next to what's a good art book, Mike? Maplethorpe? No, wait a minute. When they had those coffee table books.
Those, yeah, definitely.
My favorite coffee table book of all time was entitled "You Put It Where," and it consisted entirely of X-ray photos from ERs of people who decided to insert very strange things and in very strange areas. My favorite of the bunch was a light bulb, and the caption was, "Whose bright idea was this?"
So this book will go right next to that one in luxury homes.
It'll blend in perfectly.
Blend in perfect.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you mentioned that you've kind of sourced a lot of this art from fans and the community and the light community. Is it fair to say that without the fans, this project might not have come together?
Yeah.
Oh,
I think so.
Yeah.
It's Mike has a really great Facebook group, a fan page on Facebook, and people over there. And the reason the idea really kind of struck me was as soon as people have a new commission or they find old things, the fans there, it's so filled with art. They share stuff all the time, and I kept seeing so many great pieces, and I just sort of in the back of my head I had this thought. I'm like, if we got all of this stuff together and put it in a book, that would be really awesome. It would be a really cool book. And finally decided to pull the trigger on it and pitch the idea to Mike toward the end of the year, going into the new year. And I pitched it to him after I had already sort of created about 60% of the Kickstarter campaign page. Like I was already kind of going, I think he's going to say yes. So I'm going to go ahead and say, if you say yes, I'm ready to go like in 3 days. And it kind of went that way. So
okay. And you mentioned having enough material for a second volume. I was looking at the donation numbers, and the dollars by which you have exceeded your goal is not insignificant. So, fair to say that money would be no object in the event of a second book.
Yeah, if this many people turn out for the first one, the second one, it's a no-brainer
all the time.
We'll do if somebody wants, we'll do nothing but tie rock. How about
absolutely.
That? The art table book is tie rock.
Listen, absolutely.
No, and we'll add that as a stretch goal.
I think you should.
Yeah, there you go.
One autographed tie rock sketch at the grand whatever the highest tier is.
There you go.
Money, guys.
One of a kind tie rock. Yeah. And hey, let me say there are fans. That's the thing, is that you can of drop into all of these groups out there. Mike has his own fans, and there's some people who are hardcore Warlord fans.
Sure.
And anytime you mention a project, even if it's not a Warlord project, but you incorporate Warlord into it, they all jump in. Same with the Legion. We've been doing some Kickstarters with Maggie the Cat and John Sable and stuff that's more real world based from Mike's catalog. And it may not appeal to Legion fans, but we offered a Legion sketchbook that just people are like, when's the next campaign? I want to get in just to get this. And so we're dragging people into the rest of Mike's catalog by offering them things that they're just absolutely hungry for.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, you're right. Legion fans in general tend to be very passionate,
Mm-hmm.
and
that was one.
you not know about John Sable, so hey, throw it in there.
Yeah.
I love that.
I've always said that Legion fans are the most dedicated and devoted fans in the world.
My friend, they have to
and
be.
the reason is that so many of them that I've met will come with a Legion book to be signed, and they'll say, this is the first book I bought with my own money, or it's the first comic book my dad bought me. And it dawned on me that the reason is it's a book about young people, for young people, by young people. You know, I was probably the old timer on the crew. At the time, I was, I think, 27 years old to Jim Shooter's 26, something like that. And it was that kind of thing that you're always going to have a soft spot in your heart for the first comic book you remember, the first one that struck that chord. Not for nothing. For me, it's a toss up between Carl Barks and Russ Manning.
Okay.
My introduction to Russ Manning was he was doing a backup feature called The Brothers of the Spear in the Tarzan comic book, and then when he took over the comic itself, it was like, holy cow, you know, pretty amazing stuff. And so you're always going to have a soft spot in your heart. I don't need to know that you know, whatever, you know, if you like I was listening to a comedian the other day talking about To Kill a Mockingbird. You know, if you admired Atticus Finch in the original book, and then you picked up that sequel that was published all those years later, it was like terrible. The antithesis to Atticus Finch. All of a sudden, he's, you know, attending meetings with the KKK and all this other stuff. That's bullshit. It doesn't take away from the original. That original Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird will always have your heart. And it's the same thing with comics. You get attracted to something when you're young, you go back to it later on, and you can sort of rekindle your childhood for a moment there. One of my favorite stories, I got this from a buddy who had a comic shop in the Twin Cities. And one day the antique store next door is getting a delivery of furniture. And the truck parks in front of his shop, and every time the guy goes back and forth with something in his hands, he's looking in the window. And John said to himself, I got a customer out of this one for sure. Sure enough, guy finishes his delivery, comes in the store, and he's walking around, and comes to the glass case in the front with all the Primo stuff on display. And he freezes, and he points at a Karl Marx Uncle Scrooge and says, is that for sale? And John said, yeah, it's $80. And the guy said, I don't care. I had that comic when I was a kid. So he whips out his wallet, pays the guy, and he says, can I bag and board that for you? The guy goes, no, I'll take it just like it is. He takes the comic, folds it twice, stuffs it in his back pocket, and out the door he goes, climbs up into his truck, sits on it, and drives away. And John said he wanted to run after him and go, what are you doing? And then he stopped. He realized he hadn't sold him a comic book. He sold him a piece of his childhood. Priceless.
Priceless.
Yeah.
Priceless.
I wish that was my story, but it's John.
Great story.
For every chance I get.
Yeah.
Well, it just speaks to the power of this medium to be able to tap into something kind of universal for all of us. And of course, you know, varying shades of gray depending on how old you were when you first got into comics, but assuming you were a kid, there's always going to be that part of you that will always have that initial feeling of when you first read when you read your first comic. Like the first one I remember I had some comics were oddball stuff lying around here and there over the years, but the one that hooked me, I'll never forget, it was an issue of G.I. Joe by Larry Hama. It's number 80. It's, on the surface, it's nothing special, right? But it's a one and done comic, and I still cite this issue to this day as how to do a proper one issue story. Mm-hmm. But I can pick that up, and I'm instantly 9 years old again, and that's the power of this medium. That's the power of one medium.
Exactly.
Excuse me, but
years ago I was at San Diego Comic-Con, and this would have been early 80s sometime, and I'm riding up in the elevator with Jack Kirby and Roz, his wife, and we go up one floor or whatever to the mezzanine level, and car stops. Gentleman steps on. He's wearing, in 1980s dollars, probably about a $3,000 suit with a vest, carrying a leather briefcase, and for all I know, it was a Gucci bag, whatever. I was impressed as hell. And he saw my name tag. It said San Diego Comic-Con. He said, Comic-Con, what's that? You guys get together and buy, trade, sell comic books? And I said, yeah, a lot of people do, but I'm here as an artist. But really, what I love to do is get in an elevator and ride up with a guy who created Captain America. And this guy is probably older gentleman. By older, I mean 20 years younger than I am right now, right? Went from staid businessman with a briefcase to a drooling 12-year-old kid, just in a heartbeat. And like, he practically pinned Jack in the corner of the car. And my floor came up, and as I'm stepping out, I looked over at Roz, and she grinned at me really big and gave me a wink. Like, it probably happened to Jack more often than anybody else.
Sure.
But that is the power of the medium. Mm-hmm. Something can happen, trigger a memory, and you're instantly transported back to the moment when you first discovered that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Check. Well, kind of playing off that, as you look at all the submissions that are coming in, is there one that has triggered something in you, having been the person who drew it?
There are a number of pieces in there that, to begin with, I had forgotten about them. But there is my character study for the character of Dawnstar in the Legion of Superheroes. And it's got scribble notes on it and stuff like that. But it's interesting to me looking back all these years, because that was what I did as a proposal to DC, along with creating when you're naming a character, it's always a good idea if you're stumped for a name, if you don't have a name to begin with, what you do is you do one column of nouns and another column of adjectives, and you add them together, right? And the first two on the top of my list were Dawn and Star. And as I went through, I had maybe 8 of each. And when I was done, I kept coming back to Dawnstar, and I felt like I had to present an alternative or two. And when I showed it to Joe Orlando, excuse me, Murray Boltinoff and Paul Levitz, who was writing at the time, Paul went, "No, we're going to call her Dawn Star. That's a great name." So there you are. That piece is part of this portfolio.
Yeah, that's it's great because it's all yellowed and it's all, whatever
Yeah,
fan
yeah.
has owned it for 50 years or 40 some odd years now. It's just Mike's handwritten notes about the color of the costume and the hair and the wings and all of this stuff. But what would have been a throwaway piece
Mhm.
has
Right.
been somehow saved, because something like that probably would have, in the 70s at DC, they were chopping things up and using it as scrap paper.
Right.
This was before people were saving it. So somebody getting a hold of that all those years later, what a miracle to have that preserved. And so you have to include something like that.
Yeah, I'm pretty astounded that it survived all these years. When the industry caved in the 90s, I sold everything that I had in my possession. Really, I mean, literally. All my artwork went down the road. Don't know where all that wound up, but it's in the hands of somebody who is going to appreciate it. And obviously, somebody did in this case. And that one little rough, pretty crude drawing has survived 50 years.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I saw several movies sort of back to back. One of them was called, I think it was called Land of the Pharaohs. And it was about building a tomb for a pharaoh. And about that same time, there was a tour of the King Tut treasures. And my brothers and I had a Viewmaster stereoscope of that sequence of 3-dimensional pictures of King Tut's treasures, and I was fascinated by it. Then there was another one called Secret of the Incas, which, by the way, is where about a third of Raiders of the Lost Ark comes from.
Oh.
And another good bit comes from Karl Marx. The opening sequence with a little gold statue, straight out of Uncle Scrooge.
Ah,
I mean,
love it.
complete with a rolling ball. Oh yeah. So, but at that point, I was maybe 10 or 12 years old, and I got to thinking I had a cheap carnival bracelet with my name engraved on it. And my folks were building a house back in my hometown in Florence, Wisconsin. You could try to look for it on the map, but it's 100 miles north of Green Bay, and there's a dot. And that is literally printed actual size of my hometown on the map.
To scale.
And I nailed that bracelet between the walls in what was going to be my bedroom. And I thought to myself, in 100 years, if they tear this house down, they're going to find that bracelet and they're going to know I was here. And that's what this has been like for 50 years. Sometimes I am taken aback by the level of dedication that the fans have shown, that someone would care enough about some of these pieces to preserve them all these years in their collection. There was a fellow up in Canada who bought quite a bit of my artwork back in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s. And his name was Ray Misner. I didn't know it at the time, but Ray had a fatal disease. And but he loved artwork. He loved comics. And even though he knew that his life was going to be short, he acquired so much stuff. not just mine. I mean, like incredible, incredible pieces of artwork. The Neil Adams Green Lantern, Green Arrow drug cover with Speedy shooting up. Ray had that, and it was because it made him happy, brought joy to his life. Even though he knew it wasn't going to last for very long, he was going to enjoy it while he could. And when I went up there and met him, went to his house, I walked in this one room and I went, oh my God, so this is what it's going to be like when I'm dead. Because it was a Mike Grell museum. And what I'm seeing here is that same kind of love for the art, love for the medium, dedicated fans, and it's looking. I just go back and think to myself, just so incredible that all this stuff has survived all these years. I'm getting a PC running low battery notification, even though I am plugged in the fucking wall. This is me. So I usually talk over here.
All right. Well, Mike sorts that out. I'll kind of throw in a comment. You know, the love of the fans is such that people who you know, and I've been to conventions with Mike, and Mike does convention sketches all the time, and there are even people who, if they just have a convention sketch, they're sending it to me going, hey, if you want to use this, you can. And you know, even though it's you know, it's just a convention sketch, it means something to them.
Sure.
In a way that they are wanting to share it with us in case we need it for this project. And to me, that's been one of the most moving aspects of working with the fans and the people sending me the stuff, is just sort of seeing how much they care, that they just want to be a part of it because of how special this project is.
So, Jeff, let me ask you, what was the process like sourcing this material from fans? How did you get the word out effectively to the Grell Nation, so to speak?
Well, you know, the folks on the Facebook group, the fan page, like I said, they're very interactive. They're very open about sharing the artwork. We've been working on these remastered editions of Mike's John Sable series, oversized hardcovers. We've done a couple of Kickstarters for those. The second volume is going to print now in the next couple of weeks, we hope. And the idea of sort of tagging this book on around the same time as that campaign just kind of occurred. Like, it just felt like the right time to do it, because this is Mike's 50th year in comics, and we wanted to do something special for that. But you know, literally around December 22nd, 23rd, I just put something up on the Facebook group saying, hey, if we were to want to assemble a book of Mike's art for an art book, who out there would like to contribute? And I've been bombarded ever since by people.
How cool is that?
Nonstop. It's incredible, you know. And at first I went to Comic Art, some of the fan websites where people post things that they own, and I just sort of looked through, and there's some people, like Mike was mentioning, there's certain people that have been collecting for a long time, so they have a huge library of original artwork, of sketches, of paintings, of what have you. And I did reach out to some of them privately and just sort of said, hey, if we did this, how heavily can we lean on your project or your collection for this project? And all of them were just like, you can use any of it, all of it, none of it, whatever you want, you can use. And that's, you know, that's just been the way it's gone. So the floodgates opened, and, you know, I've been up to my eyeballs in artwork for the past 3 weeks, and it's been great, because I've been discovering things now too that I've never seen before. So yeah.
So in the book, are you going to like acknowledge, or, you know, with the piece, say, owned by, or how is that going to be presented?
We'll create a directory so that anyone who contributes to the book will, you know, be acknowledged for their contribution. So it's, you know, from the jump, it just felt like the only way to do this was, by the fans and for the fans in honor of Mike. And so to make this as much of a fan ownership thing as possible is the goal.
One of the things that we want to be cautious of, not that my art is in that category, but if you were to post something like, say, President's Death Dealer from a collection of Mr. and Mrs. Rodney Filthy Rich of
right.
Rodeo Drive,
yeah.
California, right?
Yeah. We're not listing phone numbers and addresses.
That makes this attract a little bit of attention. Sort of like, was it the lady who got $3.5 million worth of jewelry stolen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like maybe you shouldn't have brought it to your hotel.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll be discreet. We won't give out anybody's phone numbers or addresses.
So, how much longer is the project funding for?
It's got like 23 days left.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we only launched 9 days ago, 24 days at this point, so almost 23. And just like I said, the immediate response was just off the charts, and it's as typical Kickstarters do. It slows down after that first 3, 4, 5 days, that rush of things, but we haven't slowed down that much. We're still seeing a steady kind of daily amount of support, and of course, there's always a flurry at the very end.
Right.
And Mike's going to be at MegaCon in Orlando the last weekend of this campaign. So folks there, hopefully who haven't heard about it, because it's always amazing. You'll do these campaigns and you just sort of carpet bomb social media. Oh, look, there's a Kickstarter. Look, we're doing a Kickstarter. This is great. We're doing a Kickstarter. And the day after it ends, 10 people will go, hey, I just heard about this. And is it too late to get in? And so, wait for the next one or whatever. But being at a con is a perfect place for Mike to talk it up. And that last weekend, I think a lot of people who see him at MegaCon in Orlando might feel inspired to jump in at the last minute and push us even higher. And it'll enable us to do even more and kind of continue projects. Mike's got a lot going on, coming up in his 51st year in comics. A lot of projects and a lot of things that we're working on. So the more fan support, the easier it is to get those things off the ground.
So, Mike, let me and I love that. I let me just put a pin in my own thought before I get going. Is just how much this is about being a love letter to fans and not just in celebration of one man or hey, let's make some money or anything. Like, I really can feel you guys passionate about this being basically by fans and for fans.
Absolutely.
This would not be happening without the fans. I mean, there's no possible way. I've got a ton of crap in my computer, but it's only from the computer age. Okay, I got my first computer somewhere in the 90s, early 90s. So anything that happened before that didn't happen, right? We don't have digital records of any of this stuff. All of those old pieces, and I will tell you that at one point I had so many preliminary layouts. Oh, you didn't do that.
The tech wars. All right.
The tech war just won the battle.
Yeah. All right. Give him a minute. He'll be back.
He'll be back. It's all good.
But yeah, no. What you're saying, Matt, is spot on. And Mike's dealing with that, so I'll say nice things about him while he's not paying attention. I've for the past few years, I've been to most of the cons that he's been to and worked his table, met the fans, gotten to know a lot of them. Really, really nice people. At cons, if he's got time, Mike will have dinner with fans, have drinks with fans, and he is a true man of the people. He gives so much, and I see other creators do it to varying degrees, but the loyalty. I see people coming back.
Right.
Or I'll see people at other cons, and I'll be like, I saw you in Cleveland, and now you're in Lexington, Kentucky, and it's like, yeah, I drove all the way here to come to this con, or some of them really out of place. Like in Baltimore, we saw a guy that I met a year ago in St. Petersburg, Florida, who came. They always, every time Mike is there, they always come back. All of these fans, and a lot of them will be like, the only reason I paid to get in the door was to come and see you. I don't care about this cosplay. I don't care about, the anime voice actors and all this stuff. They'll wade through the crowd and they'll be like,
the month is.
Yeah. They'll wade through the crowd and all of the stress of going to some of these cons and, get there early on Friday and go, I'm here just to see you. I want to get a commission sketch. I want to watch you draw. I want to talk to you. I want to hear you tell stories. And he obliges, every one of them. He won't, you'll go by artist tables. You guys go to cons. You go by artist tables, and they're like, signing from 2 to 3, drawing from 3:30 to 4:30, and you go by the table, and it's like, be back in an hour, be back, and all this stuff. You have to, and as somebody who works the table with Mike, about 6 hours in, you have to go, Mike, go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Take a break, man. Do you need anything? He is a workhorse. He will not leave the table. There he is. He's back.
Mike is back.
I'll stop saying nice things now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Saying mean things.
There he is.
As you can probably tell, I'm on my phone now.
Well, it's okay.
I'm on my phone.
It is A-okay. So no, Jeff was just talking up how amazing your fans are, and based on what he's saying, I don't think I can argue with that.
Yeah.
So what?
No, they are incredible. They really are. I always tell them, thanks for buying me all that food. Tell to good use.
So how has, Mike, over the past 5 decades, how has the relationship of the professional artist been with the bands? How has that changed and evolved for you personally?
Well, 50 years ago, if you wanted to meet someone in the business, you had to go to New York. I mean, that's all there was to it. I will say that it was pretty fantastic in New York 50 years ago, because you could walk down the hallway any given day and run into Kurt Swan or Wally Wood. I mean, it was just fantastic. Or you could poke your head into Joe Kubert's door.
Yeah.
And just have a chat with him. Then things changed. They were already beginning to change with Phil Souling's New York Comic Con, which is where I got my break in comics, or where I sort of got my introduction to Irv Novick, who helped me get in. But
Unsung hero.
Yeah, he was.
You just don't hear about Irv Novick.
Say it again.
Yeah, you just don't hear much about, when people talk about the great artists of whenever, you just don't hear much about Irv. And he was just a fantastic artist.
He was. He never really wanted to be in comics.
Interesting.
He was an illustrator.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of commercial art, right? But there was something about the attraction, I think. Number one, a regular paycheck. Okay, commercial art, you do a job, you send it in, you get paid 6 months later.
Right.
I mean, that's all there was to it back then. And having a steady income was something else. It just turned out that he was so damn good at it.
Yeah.
But the things that have changed now since then is that with the advent of comic conventions, with the popularity of comics and pop culture, comic shops all over the world have guests on a rotating schedule. The guys make personal appearances, and I think it has helped. And podcasts like this have helped to humanize the people in my industry, as opposed to put them on a pedestal someplace.
Sure.
We're accessible. Most of us, one or two of us, are still cantankerous old farts. and I won't tell you his name, but you can guess. But for the most part, when we go to a comic convention, it's about selling artwork, doing sketches, selling prints, whatever, signing autographs, but more than that, it's public relations. People who don't deal well with the public tend to be overwhelmed by the adulation of the fans.
Right.
And some of the guys who do well kind of feed their ego off of stuff like that, right? So it's kind of a mixed bag. But on the other hand, fans can go to a comic convention, they can walk up and down the aisles, stop in front of somebody's table if there's not a big long line somewhere, and have a chat. Somebody asked me one time, don't you get tired of answering the same question 100 times a day? And I said, of course I do. But the kid who's asking that question is asking it for the first time. And if he didn't care about me, if he didn't care about what I do, he wouldn't be here asking this question. So I owe him the courtesy of a decent answer. When I was in the Air Force, way back in the sort of in the middle part of the last century, I was stationed in Arkansas, and I got some free time, and I went to a concert in Memphis at the Mid-South Coliseum. And among other guys, let's see, the Oak Ridge Boys were there, Statler Brothers, doesn't matter. But Sonny James was there. Sonny James was billed at the time as the Southern Gentleman, who had a record, probably beaten by the Beatles eventually, but at that point he had something like 23 or 26 number one hits in a row. And he comes up, does his act, and while they're setting up the next band, the next whoever performer, he would come down to the edge of the stage, and he's signing autographs hand over fist. And some people are bringing stuff from home. Some people are buying albums from him. Went up and bought an album. I noticed that every time someone brought him an album to sign, he would tear the plastic off and sign the jacket. Otherwise, you put the plastic on another album, right? You got the world's only Beatles album signed by Sonny James. And every single one of them, every person he spoke to that night, he looked them in the eye, shook their hand, and said, "Thank you." And I went, "That's how you do it." And that is how you do it.
Little gratitude goes a long ways.
Exactly. You treat people decent, and you leave an impression on them, and hopefully it'll be a good impression that comes back in some kind of a reward. I remember a guy by the name of Jim Morgan brought me a photograph of his bouncing new baby boy, Travis. And then about 9 years later, he brought the baby boy back, who was singularly unimpressed. And about 10 years later, Travis came and said, I know you know my dad. I just want to say I'm Travis Morgan. and it's like, holy crap, how old am I? But even still,
What a no, boy! What a tip of the hat, though.
oh yeah, when you stop and think that you made enough of an impression on someone that they named their child after one of your characters,
Yeah,
can't get too much better than that.
I would suppose not. No, not at all. So, looking back on 50 years in the business, what on the business side of things, on the art side, however you want to break it down, what do you think has been the biggest positive change for creators?
Oh, we staged a sort of a breakout, not a coup, but a revolution in the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a little on the slow side to start, but it sure caught on when Mike Gold contacted me. Actually, first was Pacific Comics. I had done a portfolio for them, and they contacted me and said, we're going to go into the comic business, and you get to keep ownership of your characters, and we'll pay you royalty. Now, the only part they ever followed through with on that was the ownership of the characters. Thank God. In fact, half their checks that they ever sent me bounced. But from that sprang First Comics. And when I got the phone call from Mike Gold, he said, we'd like to come over here and do something for us. And I said, what? And he said, anything you want. Carte blanche. And I went, oh, that's for me. Now, I wasn't the only one. Joe Staten had already signed with them. He was their art director, so he had a foot in the door ahead of me. I was the second one to sign, and behind me came Howard Chaykin. I mean, hard on my heels. Guys like John Ostrander, Tim Truman, just
Steve Rude, Mike Barron.
oh my God, yeah, Steve Rude, the dude, and,
Dude.
yeah, and we were all taking a chance, but we knew it. We knew that there was a chance that, it's like being a baby bird, taking that first flight. You got to let go of that branch.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure the baby bird figures like we did. If I crash and burn, I can always fly back to the branch. And that was what I was thinking, was that, well, what the hell, take a chance here.
Mm.
If it pays out, it'll be really great for everybody. I mean, you don't think for 1 minute that Marvel Comics would be paying royalties, or DC paying royalties, if someone hadn't put a gun to their head, and we were that gun. And the idea just took root, and it was kind of, I don't know, that the idea that it took that long was very strange to me, because I was always a huge comic strip fan, and those guys all own their own material. Mm-hmm. And I always thought that it was completely wrong that the company would control everything. At the end of the, you put in your 20 years and you get a gold watch and a kick in the ass out the door. I'm still waiting for my gold watch, by the way. I've already had that kick in the ass, and that's called getting old. You asked about the changes in the industry. That's one of the changes that I thoroughly resent and object to. Ageism, I've said this before, ageism is the new sexism in comics. In the 60s and 70s, a woman could walk in the door and she could have a portfolio that would make Michelangelo look like a piker, and they would put her to work as a colorist, especially if she were related to anyone in the production department. If you're married to someone in the production department, a woman could get a job as a colorist if she was an artist. I mean, she had to have talent, but it didn't matter how talented she wasn't going to get to go to the big show. I mean, that's just all there was to it. And it wasn't until years later that women started breaking through. Well, in the comic industry, ageism sets in when you turn about 45, maybe 43, 42, something like that. I had a phone call from an artist I worked with, a fantastic artist who was extremely popular. And he said, I've got a dilemma. I said, what's your problem? He said, I've been offered a full professorship at the university. I said, and? He said, and 6-figure plus, like low mid 6 figures. And he said, full ride scholarships for my whole family, all benefits, health insurance, everything. And I said, and he said,
where's the problem here?
He said, well, my book's really popular right now. I said, let me tell you this. In 10 or 12 years, the phone is going to stop ringing. And when you phone DC to say what's going on, you're going to have to spell your name twice to the girl who answers the phone, because everybody else will have moved on.
Yeah.
And it has been that way. So one of the saving graces for me is that I've always been able to find something else to move on to. In Jeff's case, he hounded me for years to do a Kickstarter. Literally, what was it? 3 years, 4 years?
Yeah, about 3 years. Yeah.
And finally, I went, okay, what the hell? Because I had chased DC for, I think, almost that whole time, 2.5 years. It took me over 2 years to get a no on a project that I proposed. If you want to know what that was, it was Green Arrow, the Longbow Hunters Part 2.
Oh,
How hard is it to sell that, right? Yeah, I couldn't for the life of me. Could not persuade him. So this has been the Kickstarter experience has been a godsend as far as I'm concerned, and it probably represents the future of the industry for young artists, guys who are trying to break out, writers, creators who can't seem to grab the attention of the big guys because, hey, we're publishing the Avengers and X-Men and Captain America and Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and all that other stuff. So we can't deal with your petty little stuff. Not like in the old days. In the old days, Mary gets on me every time I say the old days. So I'm going to say in olden days. In the olden days, when you had to dodge dinosaurs on the way to the office, practically, you could wander in cold, walk down the hallway, knock on the door, and talk to the publisher or talk to an editor and pitch your idea. And if you liked it, he'd say, hang on, I'll be right back. And he would go down the hallway, talk to the publisher, come back 20 minutes later and say, you're on. We'll do it. And it was that easy. It was that easy. Never happen again. You got to get through the gatekeepers. And yeah, they take their job seriously.
Yeah. And I do think, I think that crowdfunding, Kickstarter, things like that are leveling agents for what I consider the new independent comics.
yeah.
I think the folks, first of all, Kickstarter is great for people like Mike, Steve Rude does Kickstarters, Ron Randall, Carl Kiesel. There are a bunch of classic guys who have solid fan bases who will follow them, and they're following them to crowdfunding outlets because that's the way that the things are being done. But also it's a way for new up and coming people, or people who maybe don't think that they have what it takes to make it in the big leagues, or whatever the mindset is. If you've got an idea, you're a writer, you can find an artist, you can publish a comic.
Well, Jeff, you do.
Yeah. And I got that, it's when I was hounding Mike about Kickstarter, the funny thing was I didn't know how to do Kickstarter. I just heard it was a great idea. And when he finally said yes, I was like, well, I guess I need to figure out how all of this works. I had seen it as a supporter. I had supported some things. So I'd seen how dynamically it worked. And so I basically taught myself how to do it. And between working on Mike's projects, every project we've done has been phenomenally successful. Even the one that we launched on March 6th, 2020, 5 days before the world ended. We still funded it and still got it out there. But between projects with Mike's, I finally got the courage to dust off things that I had written and projects that I felt passionate about. I found artists, and I've been publishing my own comics now too. So I'm a big advocate. This is for everybody. If you've got an idea in a comic, you can make it happen. It doesn't have to sell 1 million copies to be valid, and the landscape as such as it is now, everything has an audience, whatever your thoughts are, there are other people that will like it. There may only be 50, but if you're not looking to get rich and famous, which doesn't happen anymore, you can put a comic book out and print 50 copies and have it and hold it and go, I did this. And that makes all the difference.
That matters.
Creatively, emotionally, psychologically, everything. And I'm having the time of my life. When I was in San Diego in 2019, I was leaving thinking, boy, this is weird. I'm in my late 40s, and this odd door just opened to me that the 5-year-old version of me would never have imagined, would never have been bold enough to dream was possible. And then we were launching Mike's stuff around that time too. And I just thought, if I don't do it now, when will I do it? And
Right.
it's been the most rewarding 5 years creatively of my life. And I've done a lot of creative stuff over the decades, but this has been the most fun I've ever had. And it's all because of this guy over here. I was just such a super fan, and I was like, I want to see more stuff. I want to see more, stuff from Mike Grell. How do we make that happen? And we found a way.
I love to hear it.
Yeah.
Mike, we're coming up on the end of our hour. Do you have any parting words of wisdom?
Wisdom? Sure. I tell all my young friends this. When you get to be middle-aged and it seems like a good idea to date a girl whose IQ equals her bra size and buy yourself a red sports car, it's not.
Don't fall into that trap.
Oh, no. Never had a red sports car. I'll say that.
Fair enough. Well, Mike, Jeff, thank you, gentlemen, so much for stopping by and just hanging out and talking with us a little bit. The project, now live on Kickstarter, is the Mike Grell 50th Anniversary Art Book. You can fund it today and get your own. Guys, thank you so much for your time once again, and good luck with everything.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Chad.
Appreciate
Well,
it.
we'd love
Thank you, guys. This was
to,
fun.
and we'd love to have you back to hear more, about your time in the industry too.
Absolutely, guys. Where can we find you guys on social media?
Can't
The
find
Mike Grell,
but Jeff will tell you.
Mike swears off social media. Real quick funny story. I met Keith Giffen in 2019. Well, I interviewed him in 2019. I had met him a year or two earlier than that, but I was chatting with Keith Giffen, and at that time he didn't have social media. And rest in peace, Keith Giffen, one of the greats. And I asked him, we did the interview, and I said, well, what are some of your social media handles so that we can, when we get the interview done, we can push it out there. And he goes, listen, I have a deal with DC Comics. I don't do social media, and they don't fire me. So that was Keith's answer. But Mike,
that's
just
a very Keith Giffen answer.
It was the perfect answer. But Mike just, he kind of swears it off, just as a general rule. But there's like I said, the Facebook Mike Grell fan page is such a great
authorized fan page, and it's administered by Jeff. Okay.
Yep. So I'm one of the guys that runs it, and Mike fully approves it. Mike's wife is a member on the page.
Okay.
She keeps us all straight.
My wife Mary keeps me appraised of everything that's going on. But I honestly rarely ever look at it.
Okay.
No. I'm a little opinionated sometimes to get involved in something like that. I can't tell you how many times Mary has stopped me with my finger poised on the send button when I'm about to respond to some ignoramus in wherever the hell something that he said, and she'll say, "Are you sure you want to say that?" And I'll stop and think and say, "Well, maybe I'll just hold it in draft until tomorrow, and then I'll delete it." Because once everything calms down. But if I were sitting there with my finger on the button all day long, oh my Lord, it would not end well.
It's a dangerous rabbit hole to go down. But there is the MikeGrell.com is his main website. It stays updated with convention appearances and so forth. A great guy runs his website for him, Stephen. And the Twitter X account spun out of that website, but I don't know how active that is or needs to be these days.
Sure.
But yeah, the fan page on Facebook is the best way to kind of stay connected with other fans who are great and sort of know what's current with Mike. That's kind of the most immediate place to do it. And you'll find me there. If you find that, you can find me. And God help, I'm not as good at not hitting the send button as Mike is. So I've got some other things I do on social media that if you want to follow me, you can. I used to be in political talk radio, so it's.
That explains so much.
You're able to throw your opinion around, is what you're telling me.
I will. I have a hard fast rule now too, though, is that I will comment twice. I will first comment to tell whatever person is posting something really stupid how stupid it is and why. Then I will come back to see their first reply. And if their stupidity remains consistent, my second post is, I only came by to tell you I don't respond to people that are a waste of my time, so I won't be back no matter how many times you post. And I'm done. And so I have made that rule. But yeah, I'm fairly opinionated. I try to the funny book business is calming me down a little bit, but yeah.
Wow, that's saying something.
yeah. I mean, it is what it is. Sure. But yeah, if you guys can find me on there and reach out, I'll talk to anybody, especially fans of Mike's, because everybody is so cool to deal with. But yeah, it's a great group of people. You can't go wrong. Join the fan page. 3,200 fans on there. Wow. And counting. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Mike Grell, Jeff Messer, thank you so much. You're welcome back anytime. There were so many aspects of your career, Mike, that we didn't get to have time to talk about, but maybe another time we will. So
all those questions that everybody asked.
Soldier, spy. Now wait a minute.
It's all those questions that everybody was sorry asked him that he wants to answer again.
Absolutely. Well, I didn't ask him, damn it.
Well, hey, there's a lot coming up in 2024 that Mike's got going on that we're working on. So we'll happily get Mike back on the show anytime to talk about some of that stuff.
Awesome.
And more, whatever.
Keep your ear to the ground on that one. So
Nope,
until next time, thank you all for listening. This has been the Comic Watcher Show, episode number 201. I'm Matt and he's Chad, and we are back for 2024. Next week, we have the one and only Todd McFarlane joining us. That's right. I don't know how Chad did it. I don't know who he paid off, but I guess we're doing this. So until then, get out there, read something cool, support your local comic shop, and above all else, be good to one another. Thank you so very much for listening.